Hughes, video number 2. And this week I want to talk about both confidence and humility and the idea of both of these on sort of a continuum. And they're kind of opposite ends of that same continuum. And I think it's an interesting topic because I think each of us naturally falls somewhere along that continuum between uh, confident and humble. And Um, both of those are important traits that we need to find a way to balance in our leadership style. And, I'll just start with kind of defining each one. And so, you think of confidence, confident people, confident leaders. Those are the type of people that have great intentionality and they have a great vision, a very clear vision, and they're going a direction with intention. And when you have great intentionality and vision, it's easy to follow because you're going after something essentially that people want to be a part of, and you can articulate it very clearly, and you're very you exude a certainty about it that people can get behind. And so without that confidence, uh, people will not be able to follow you. But great leadership is about more than simply having a confidence in yourself and in your direction and in your vision. uh, Leadership also involves an aspect of humility. And humility is the part that says, I don't know it all and I haven't done it yet, but I need you to help me get there. I know where I want to go. I have the vision, but I can't do it alone. And I need your help. And that's what takes leaders to another level. And when you start to display that level of humility, that's when people will follow you not only with just their head and their hands, but that's when you start to endear yourself to people and they follow you with their heart. Um, because people will feel appreciated and valued. And it kind of goes back to, this adage, sort of a fundamental rule. Um, if people aren't involved, then they aren't invested. So I'll unpack each of these individually, and I'll start with confidence. And I want to touch on the danger of being overly confident. And there is danger in this. And there's really two aspects where you get yourself into trouble by being overly confident. And that's at first you close yourself off to the opportunity to learn, and you close off to the opportunity to collaborate. And if you think about the overly confident athlete, they are so set in their ways and they hold their methods with such conviction that really they can't even hear the opinions of others. And it just sort of it's immediately dismissed because they already know the best way, and there is only one way, and that's their way. And when you get into that mindset, you can't be coached, you can't learn, you can't see any alternative perspectives. You just have one track mind, and that's your way, your vision. And second, you're unable to collaborate because there is no space for anybody else to contribute their ideas to your success and your direction, because you can't even hear their opinions. And so there is danger in being overly confident. So recognize that. And just to bring this into a practical realm, well, what are the types of things that you can do when you find yourself too far on the confidence side of the continuum? How do you humble yourself? How do you bring humility into your approach? Well, I think there are two key things to remember with this. The first is acknowledgement, and that's simply saying that you have to acknowledge that you don't have all the answers, and that it's also okay not to know. You resist the urge to speak in certitudes, um, resist the urge and the temptation to speak in absolute truth, and resist the urge to try to convey that you have all the answers. Um, I don't believe in the fake it until you make it. There's no need, because it's okay not to know. And so I think if you can acknowledge it, simply that you don't have the answers, it brings a lot of humility to your approach. And the second is to replace judgment with curiosity. And simply that means when you hear the opinions and the ideas of others, rather than responding in a way that solicits judgment, such that by saying, that you hear an idea and your immediate reaction is to think, it's a bad idea, or it won't work, or it doesn't make sense, or that person, so and so is an idiot. And instead you replace that response with curiosity, and you go, why does he think that way? Or could that idea work? um, these are good ways to bring humility to your approach. Okay, so on the flip side, what happens when you're overly humble and you're on the opposite side of the continuum? Well, if you're overly humble, then you sort of lack that conviction and that clarity in your direction. And you stall because you can't execute because you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe in your direction. And when you're in that state, obviously, you're frozen. You can't make the decisions, and people will not be able to follow you because you have no clear direction. And obviously, being in a state like this is problematic. And you know, I think the $1 million question is, how do you become more confident when you're overly humble? Um, and I think confidence is such a fickle thing, and it takes so long to build it. Um, and it can be so fragile, and it can be so easily taken away. And confidence is something that you have to work hard at. Um, and if there is any sort of advice that I could give, obviously, it's a difficult question, but here are two things that I would say that are going to be helpful in building confidence when um, you're overly humble, and you lack that sort of belief in yourself. Um, the first thing is that I think when you get in that state, you're thinking a little bit too much about yourself. And I think you sort of forget that it's not about you and your stats and your success. And you put too much pressure on yourself, and you can kind of crumble under that pressure. And so, just in those moments, remind yourself that it's not about you, and instead it's about the team success to which you contribute, but you're not solely responsible for sort of you know creating. And I think if you can take that pressure off yourself by just remembering, you've got a whole team to get the job done together, um, I think that's going to help you get out of that overly humble rut. And the second part is, you need to give yourself a little bit of grace when you make mistakes. Um, I remember a quick story. This was maybe a couple years back. I was watching an NFL broadcast, and Tony Romo was calling the game. No, sorry, Troy Aikman was calling the game, and he was talking about a rookie quarterback. It was a preseason game, and this is a young guy that nobody had heard of, and Aikman described this guy. The term he used is he said he's a tell me once kind of guy. And so I thought about that. I thought about that many times. And, I've basically come to the conclusion that I don't think such a thing exists. And I think to be a tell me once kind of guy, to have that expectation on yourself, is unrealistic. And all that is to say that, when you don't understand things, when you make mistakes, you got to give yourself some grace, because there is no such thing as a tell me once. And you can't expect yourself to pick it up right away and to be great at it right away. And so I think if you give yourself that space to make those mistakes and just be forgiving and gentle to yourself, it's a good way to get out of that overly humble rut and to kind of build the confidence back up. All right, to summarize everything that's been said, um, essentially, I think the point is that you need to recognize that humility and confidence are two sides of the same coin, and both are absolutely necessary for a great, effective leadership. And you need to sort of find that balance. Um, each of us naturally falls at different points of this continuum, but great leadership requires both a sense of confidence and humility. And there are dangers in being exclusively one or the other. And there are ways that you can develop both confidence and humility, and that's an ongoing pursuit, and it's something that you have to work at every day. Um, and so, I hope that this video has given you something to think about. Um, and I hope you keep this in mind as you develop these tools, and you try to apply confidence um, when you're overly humble and you're lacking confidence, and you try to apply some humility and try to humble yourself at times when you start to become overly confident. Okay, that's all for now.